was already sick of seeing these things at conventions, but now they're showing up at the makers markets that I go to in my free time, and I hate them even more. That's it. That's my intro. Hi, I'm Amanda. You're watching Swell Entertainment. I go to a lot of events, okay? I make a lot of content here on YouTube, on this channel even, of events, of conventions and gatherings and things that I go to and review for you, okay? And so in doing that, my breadth of my own personal experiences when it comes to types of vendors and trends that I see in vendors and sellers and the like at events has grown over the years, and I notice certain patterns. I notice it a lot when I go to, like, let's say one convention one year and I go to the same convention a year later, and I start noticing, like, let's say a lack of booths, lack of massive major sponsors, things like that, and I'm like, oh god, the economy is not this is bad. I see things like that, but then I also see the rise of a certain type of what I call convention slop. So what happens often at these booths is that they are full of 3D printed items that are based on files or printed via files that are either free, widely available, or extremely discounted. And so that's where you see a lot of these, okay? And there's usually different colors and things like that. Now, I have a couple of 3D printed items here. I have a dice that I won at OpenSauce, okay? I have a ghost that I paid for, and I have a little, quote, autism creature that I was gifted by a viewer at an artist alley. It sits on my back shelf normally. I'm sure I have other 3D printed items in my apartment, but the thing about these 3D printed things is often I would say the dragon is the most readily identifiable one, but I feel like these things are not always the most expensive. They're fairly cheap, but there's usually not much variation in them from event to event aside from potentially colors. But there's usually hundreds of them at these booths, okay? And I won't lie, I go in and I fidget with them. I make them try and stand up. I make them make little weird shapes because I'm a tactile person and I'm annoying. But I don't buy them, okay? I've never bought one of these dragon things. They're often advertised as fidget toys because, you know, you can articulate them and mess with them and things like that. And they're fun to play with on your desk, let's say. The 3D printed dragons and 3D printed mass easily available items like this are the things, like, you could argue this is mass available, this 20-sided die. These things are irritating for people to see because it's like, this is just taking up space of a booth. And a lot of conventions don't care because it's more vendors' fees, and these things are usually decent sized booths. I've definitely been to conventions where there's 3 or 4 of these booths there, you know, and I've been there where there's 1 or 2. I have been seeing more of these when I go to makers markets. So lately, in my free time when I'm not traveling, I have been going to quite a lot of makers markets and craft fairs and things like that in the Los Angeles area. You guys don't see these videos typically. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll make a short video or something like that if I decide to. But I often decide not to because I'm usually not intrigued by what I see lately. And I think it would be mean for me to call out these makers markets and or these vendors at these makers markets, because there's usually not a lot of them, and you guys would be able to identify them extremely quickly. And then I should note as well, like, let's say with this little creature, okay, this was something that was, like, also being sold at this artist booth. I apologize, I don't remember your name, and I don't think it's on here. It is not. These were not, like, the main thing they were selling, and quite a lot of, I would say, artist alleys and things like that, they have items in their booth that are 3D printed that they kind of use as like a extra thing, like, oh, I designed this so I sell it and things like that. But they're not like the dragons. Like, I think there is a difference between a 3D printed item and a 3D printed item that is widely available on the, you know, file sites for these I'm on printables right now looking around. The top 4 downloaded ones that have all been downloaded about 80,000 times are all various versions of the articulated dragons. The other thing is the dragon egg that looks like the Game of Thrones dragon's egg. Those are the popular ones. Now, there's a lot of different innovations in 3D printing that I've seen. I've seen people, obviously, the collapsible weapons. A lot of people are making 3D printed like fabric so they can use it in cosplay and things like that. That's cool. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the mass-produced 3D printed junk that is ending up at these conventions that someone's going to play with once, break in half, and then maybe throw in the trash, and then now we have more plastic waste. This is not too far off from a couple of years ago when everyone was complaining about the amount of resin items that were ending up on Etsy and the like. Now, resin, items and things like that are still being sold. I personally don't buy any resin pieces if I can help it. If I'm, let's say, even tempted by something at an artist alley, it's usually not something that's like a resin ashtray or something like that. But like, that's where I feel like we're getting there, because I definitely see way less resin items now. But although I do feel like that comes into the fact that a lot of people have been better at articulating and communicating the risk of even working with resin, with the fumes and things like that. A lot of people were not, at the time, were using resin in like properly ventilated spaces or with proper protection equipment and things like that. And it's like, yeah, you're just inhaling fumes. So I think that led to people like just buying less resin kits, although that just could be my algorithms not showing me the rise of resin. I see it far less at conventions now, I would say. But I see these things, the 3D printed items, growing. The other thing I've been seeing a lot of is vendors that are selling things that they bought off of Amazon. Now, could they also be selling things on Amazon? Yes. But for example, when I go with Anarchy to places, my friend Anarchy, some of you guys have maybe heard me mention her. She goes with me to a lot of the anime conventions that I go to here in California. She likes wearing fake nails. I don't. Okay. And so we always stop at like the nail booths when she would like to go and see those, because obviously she wants to see cute nail designs. And so it's weird for her to be like, no, I'm not going to buy the nails. I was like, oh, you like those ones? And she was like, yeah, but then I saw the ones next to it and it's like, I've seen those on Amazon. Amazon, yes, could be ripping these things off, but also these people could just be repackaging these things from Amazon or AliExpress and the like and selling them for way more at these vendor booths. There's also that. Now I want to make it clear, legitimate nail artists that are making and designing their own nail art and selling nails and such at these events. There are also some that are just repackaging things. Okay. And so that's irritating, but that's a convention, not necessarily, a maker's mark. The nails one is one that I hear from other people a lot more. Okay. Because I'm just not familiar with that world, frankly. What I've also been seeing is the little potentially crocheted items. Crochet is not something that can be mass made the way that knitting can be done. So I get really hesitant about the cutesy little crocheted items at conventions, because I'm like, okay, who is making all of these? I've seen a couple of these booths, like the crochet flowers are very popular. I've been seeing many of those at makers markets lately, and I do believe they are crocheted, okay? Because it's one thing if it's like, if I see an art, like when I'm walking through an artist alley and I see someone sitting there and they're like literally crocheting a hat, a bonnet or something, as I am there talking with them, I'm like, okay, cool. I feel more comfortable with at the very least this booth existing here. Or they're talking about oh yeah, here's my mom, she does all the crochet and things like that. Here's a photo of her, she loves this design, things like that. When there's a story there, when it's just someone just kind of taking money because they're selling these giant things, I'm like, who made all of these? That's where my concern flares up. Seemingly mass produced mini crochet keychains of Captain America that you see at a Comic-Con type event. So William's been traveling, so this was actually filmed before I went to LA Comic-Con, and yet LA Comic-Con could have fit into this video so incredibly well. The amount of slop, the 3D printed dragons, the blind boxes, but they're all the same blind boxes with licensing, but there's 80 booths. All of the different knit booths where everyone has a different name on their booth, but they all have the exact same items. I'm sorry, that's crazy. Those guys get concerned about who is making those. But I've been seeing those at makers markets as well. So again, either people are falling off the same pattern, or these items are being sourced from the same places. You know what I'm saying? Because it's the same style of character, it's the same style of item. And then we also have, again, maybe this is just me, this is just a personal gripe of makers markets. I'm sorry. The mid-sized jewelry pocket right now of makers markets, none of you are intriguing to me. And again, I'm on a no-buy year, so I think that's also helping things as well, where I'm looking at things not from the lens of I'm going to buy that. I'm looking at through the lens of what am I tempted by more than anything, because I'm not buying things. So I think that's where I'm able to look at things where so many jewelry items in the mid-sized price points of what is at these makers markets. And I always check, I'm like, okay, is this the same one? They're always the exact same. It feels where it's a lot of dainty, basic pieces, okay? A lot of things are gold-plated. Much of it looks like it's a ripoff of, let's say, Bottega. Barely concealed Louis Vuitton logos. A Tiffany knockoff. It's a lot of items that are referencing other items as a dupe but for a not, I wouldn't say similar price point, because obviously a lot of these initial items are like thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars, but they're not cheap enough for the quality of which you are making them at. That's what I'm seeing a lot of. The other thing that I've been seeing a lot of is that someone has their homemade stuff, and then they are also selling Lafufus alongside their homemade stuff to get you to go to their booth. And I get it, but also, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. The 3D printed items, though, at makers markets, I think is the one that I've been seeing the most complaints about, because I had this all personal feeling of mine with a couple of makers markets. I'd been to like 2 or 3 back to back that I like wasn't going to post about any of them because I was just like wildly disappointed. Same with, again, selling items that are drop shipped and the like, and it's like you're just like trying to branch out into like an in-person market type of thing, which again, I don't know how much of this is going to change, obviously, because of the current tariff situation. The rise of the AI printed items is because AI printers have gotten much more affordable for a lot of people and things like that as the technology has developed, the same that happens with all technology developing. I'm just sick of seeing it. Come up with a new design. Amanda, that's difficult and or expensive. Yeah. Don't you want to do something different though? We have enough dragons. I never thought I would say that as a fantasy lover, but we have enough dragons at conventions and makers markets. I'm shocked makers markets are allowing AI printed items at this point though, but I get it. I do, obviously it is a matter of making things, but craft fairs and things like that allowing items that are mass produced of this regard, where it's like this is from a free pattern and not something that the creator itself, the seller, made. In that regard, like just simply the act of making something via a 3D printer you own, I don't think is enough in this regard. I do think you need to show that it's, you know, an original design, but I don't know who's making these makers markets, so that's just me. I was already having this opinion and I was talking about it on stream and I was like, I don't know if I want to make a video on this. Maybe I will. Maybe I was going to write, you know, a post for the glasses file. That's my newsletter. If you want to go check it out, it's linked down below. I figured I was going to do that. And then I started getting some TikToks, maybe because my phone is always listening to me, always that. But I started getting TikToks like this.
How many craft fairs or like art fairs have I shown up to? And then all of it is just garbage, caca, drop shipped, 3D printed, like garbage. It'll be like keychains. There's a bunch of people selling keychains of dog breeds, but you know, it's not like they designed the dogs and the keychain or anything. That, you know, it's just they're buying junk online and then maybe they put it together with one step and then they're selling it at a maker's market. Everybody's booths are giving that they started the craft or art and the booth at the same time. The second that they started making it, they also immediately started selling whatever caca they own. I want to see quilts. I want to see candle makers. I want to see artists. I want to see people making weird things. Everything's just so TikTok-y. It's all TikTok shop fodder.
So this is from Josie on TikTok, and I completely agree, where she made the sentiment of it feels like you started your shop at the same time as you started this hobby. And I get it, as someone who is self-employed, find a hobby that makes you money or whatever. But like, it doesn't even feel like you have like a real joy with this hobby. You're like, I need something that's going to make money. Oh, I can do this. Okay. The comments section has a few other, you know, bits in it that I thought were interesting. We've got, and the tumbler cups. So the tumbler cups, are, you know, like those tumblers where you buy them cheap. Then you take, let's say, a Cricut machine. Okay. A Cricut is like a, thing where you can like, kind of cut out paper and stickers and then like heat press them onto items. Very popular with PTA mom scene, I would say. At least that was my experience growing up when Cricuts came out. My Girl Scout troop leader loved Cricuting everything for us. The tumbler cups is probably one of the more popular things to do, because then that's something that you can do a lot of fairly quickly and then sell. And you can do things like, let's say, a Nightmare Before Christmas, easy to customize to make it like a trendy item and things like that. I don't want them, so I don't know where you're getting these tumbler cups from. Oftentimes they're just drop shipping the tumbler cups themselves. I don't know how many times you guys have tested these things when they were the TikTok shop purge happened like a year or so ago. I made a video on this if you'd like to go see it. I don't know if I talked about this in there, but it was found that some of the items that people were buying from these TikTok shop things did include lead in these tumbler cups, because they were selling knockoff like Stanley cups. Like they weren't real Stanley cups, they were knockoff ones, and they were like, these are way cheaper than like buying them via Stanley. And it's like, yeah, because it's made with nefarious means and there's lead in it. That's why it got taken down, because you guys were selling stuff with lead in it, because you were just claiming that they were Stanley cups. Like, it's things like that. Not to say that all tumbler cups being sold at makers markets and conventions are going to have lead in them. I'm just saying, I don't know where you source these from. I don't like it. And then people are like, and then real crafters can't afford booking fees. Every year, it feels like I get tagged in, I either get sent emails or I get tagged. You guys have seen this a lot where people are complaining about booking fees and table fees and things like that for vendors. This happens. We're seeing this again. The economy's a mess right now. I was talking about this where someone explained like it feels like we're being charged more for worse items, worse service. Same goes with again, vendors' fees going up at events that are like not up to par or just like not well run, etc. And so it's like, hey, you're charging me more money for less people to come because you're not advertising, you're not spending money on advertisement, but you're trying to raise costs for us so you can make more money. It's annoying. It's either acrylic keychains for $5 or ceramics for $500. I agree. I do feel like I personally like seeing ceramics at makers markets. However, I do feel like a lot of ceramics look exactly the same now. Same thing as the jewelry thing. It's just a lot of overlap. The reason I've started going to makers markets, even just to explore as someone who's not doing a no-buy, is because Etsy is borderline unusable now. Just straight up unusable. It's all drop shipping stuff. It's a lot of AI images. It's a lot of 3D printed items, although I do believe that there is a new thing as of June of this year, according to cnet.com. Etsy is clamping down on 3D printed products. Here's how it could affect you. Etsy has clarified some of its policies, and from the way they now read, you might not be able to sell your 3D printed dragons anymore. Here is the updated thing that apparently left many sellers confused. Items produced using computerized tools. Physical items that a seller produced in their physical shop or home using computerized tools such as a laser printer, 3D printer, CNC, or Cricut machine. These items must be produced based on a seller's original design and are often personalized or customized to a buyer's specification. An Etsy spokesperson told me that the above policy has always been Etsy's standard position on products that are made by sellers. The area I have added emphasis to is the part that has been edited. Originally, the Etsy guidelines included the phrase, or using a templated design or pattern, which seemed to allow for the use of designs from 3D modelers. By removing this section and keeping the part about the original designs, it seems that they say that each seller must design the digital file themselves, as well as print it out, process it, and ship it out. Etsy has said this update is to clarify its position rather than change it. According to the creative guidelines, an item that doesn't qualify as a commercially available base item with only superficial alterations, such as an addition of a simple mass-produced stick-on or adornment. The sticking point seems to be the commercially available part, as a lot of 3D print sellers on Etsy use a commercial license from 3D modelers as a source to create physical models. I mean, if this cuts down on the inusability of Etsy, I'm not mad, because it's just a lot of slop. It's frustrating to like go through Etsy. Like I searched up 3D print on Etsy, and like a lot of there's like a good 6 things of there's multiple dragons. There's just multiple dragons. There's now 3D printed Labubu models. Oh, this is fun. It's an articulated armadillo. I'm going back to Josie's comment section here. Some people were saying, are y'all gonna pay for quilts? Because the most frequent comment I get is that I charge too much. Everybody wants high quality art that takes years to learn to do, and almost nobody will pay for it, which is not the fault of anyone involved at this level. This is systemic, but it is the reason. I also think we have this problem of no one has money right now. A lot of people would love to have a handmade item like a quilt of quality, and they don't have the funds for it. I don't think that necessarily means that any artisan is charging too much for it. I haven't seen it, obviously, or anything like that, so I don't know. But we also run the issue of people can't afford things. They would like to, but they can't. That does not mean that you should haggle your items down or anything like that. That means you're going to sell maybe 2 instead of 18. Things are rough. I don't know how else to explain that. I don't think the answer is let's allow 3D printed slop at marketplaces for crafters. That's my personal take. People saying they want niche, they want unique. Someone said pulling up to the market and it's just the TikTok shop. You guys know my feelings on TikTok shop. Someone said, in my area, it's all those horrendous ribbon wreaths, kids' bows, Temu garden flags, and soap. I feel like people don't want to learn skills, and people also don't want to pay for something made with skill. I would say yes, like I said, I feel like the economy is a mess, and people, I think, don't understand maybe the time and skill that goes into items that are made with skill. But I think that's, again, like I said, I mentioned Amazon earlier in this video. I do think we can just get it super quick. We can get it super fast. We can get it same day. Kind of diminishes the amount of work that goes into the items being made. Even if it is something that's, let's say, a headphones, Like there are people that don't understand like the different components and the tech and the cost of making an item like that. So of course, they're not going to fully understand the quilt, which is something that they've just kind of seen, let's say, a family member doing for certain years of them growing up. It's like, oh yeah, my mom makes quilts. Why would I pay you $200 for a handmade quilt when my mom can make it? Like that's the thing that I always think about this. So my dad loves doing this to me because I'm a crafty person. You guys don't always see this, but I'm a crafty person. I've been sewing, crocheting, knitting, the like since I was embroidering since I was 6. I can make a lot of things. However, things take time to make. So oftentimes when I'm out and about with my dad or something, okay, we're at a store or something and I'm like, oh, this is nice. And he knows I'm on a no-buy, but even prior to this, he's been doing this for years. He just goes, oh, you can make that. And I'm like, probably. Do I have the time to make it? Would I make it to this quality? Would I make it to this level? You know, that type of thing. There's a lot of things that can be made that I probably could make, but I also acknowledge there are people that are way better than me that have been way more focused, who don't just use crafting as something they like to do as a hobby and are instead are like very dedicated to learning the skill and being good at the skill, that are going to make it way better than me. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's the sentiment for a lot of people, where it's like, if they know a crafty person, they're like, oh, my friend can make that. I also have audacity where I'm like, currently in my no-buy year, I have an insane amount of audacity where I'm like, I can make that. I can make that, and I probably can. Will I do that? No, I've been working on the same crochet project since January. It's not even very good. It's just like a weird little lap blanket because I don't want to buy new yarn, so I'm just using the yarn that I have. That's it. I do it when I'm stressed or when I'm watching TV. That's what I do. Could I make a sweater? Sure. Will I? Probably not. Would I be willing to spend money on a good sweater? Yes, not currently. I'm doing a no-buy year. Okay, let me put it this way as well. Because of tabling fees, we also could be seeing a rise of Maker's Market slop, crap fair slop, like as I've been saying, it's just called slop, at these markets, because those are the ones that can afford these tabling fees. Because there are real makers, real crafters, artisans, wow, that want to table at these events, but they don't want to pay these fees, because they'd rather just go and make more items and then hopefully maybe get a sale on Instagram or something. Like the physical act of going and buying a table at these things is becoming so out of reach for the actual artisans that's why we are seeing these slop people fill in these gaps. Maybe these makers markets also don't want slop at these makers markets, but they're the ones paying the table fees. Then it becomes a whole symbiotic issue that leaves me, the potential person, I know I'm not buying anything, let's say I am, the attendee, annoyed. The one who would be willing to spend money on a nice crafted thing, annoyed, because why am I looking at a bow? The bows are everywhere. Bows are never going away. I feel like we're past the bow era though, personally. Are bows selling well? Bow designers, are those selling well right now? I don't think they are. I feel like they're not. I feel like because we're losing the tween age, so we're losing like that like kid age. I feel like we're losing the bow era, the bow age. I've been liking the hummus I've been finding at a lot of these events. Lots of bakery items are filling in at makers markets and craft fairs, I feel like, which I don't dislike. I just would also like to see, a variety of handmade items. Yeah, a lot of people in Josie's comment sections are saying it's really hard in this economy to make fully handmade items and sell them for what they're worth because people want cheap things. I don't think it's necessarily people want cheap things. I think people can afford cheap things. There are two issues of the same problem. People don't have money right now is the combining issue. So then we have this issue where we have 3D printed slop at a craft fair, which again, I know I'm just sharing this and I'm talking about my irritation, and I'm not giving you a solution because the solution is the economy needs to get better. But I don't think the economy is going to get better from 3D printed dragons and quirky tumblers that come from questionable sources that say number one ka-chow. I don't know. Limey Queen sticker on it. I don't know. I don't think that's going to save the economy. Which again, I don't have an answer. It's just, I'm sharing this because I'm tired of seeing it. Because like I've been wanting to go in, like at the very least, like if I find something cool, I want to be able to be like at least post it on my story and potentially point it out to people that are willing to spend money right now. But then I go to these events and I don't find anything I like, and I find things that are actively irritating to me, and I'm like, because I know there are independent jewelry designers out there. Like I know there are people that are doing cool pieces and cool items and things like that, and designing clothing items and trying to start their own clothing lines. And then I go to these events to see if I can find any local people, and it's a lot of drop shipped items. And I high-key hate it. Now again, like I said, because of the current tariff situation, this is going to get more difficult for people to do at some point, not even just for drop shipping items, but for sourcing their materials that they may have had made overseas and the like outside of the United States. So we'll see how this all plays out. I don't think it's going to go well. I don't like how it's going currently. The other thing I didn't talk about here, the AI image infection of makers markets and craft fairs. There's items where it's like, I think they think it's like better than tracing or something. And so they like AI generate an image of like Mickey Mouse and then they put that on a t-shirt and then that's what they're selling. And I'm just like, hate it. Ew. Low key. Hope you make no money. I really didn't even go into that. But it's just, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Have you been to a lot of makers markets and craft fairs? Obviously, I'm based in LA, so I have more I can go to, but also that's going to influence the fact of like who is able to vend at these things. It's not uncommon for people out here to have multiple jobs. And therefore, you know, these could literally be people just side hobbies where they're like, I'm going to make a lot of money selling 3D printed dragons and Game of Thrones eggs that aren't Game of Thrones eggs. Could be that. Let me know what you've seen at your makers markets or even conventions. Let me know. Comment down below. Reminder, I stream on Twitch. Reminder that Swell Entertainment is now available on Spotify. Reminder, check out Girly Pop Go if you'd like to see more car and motorsport content. Shout out to my channel members. If you also want to join channel memberships, you can go ahead and click join down below. If you'd like to find out social media, that'll be all up here. That's going to have all the day. Goodbye. Even though I'm doing a no by year, I am such a business card holder. If you see me at your table and I grab your business card, what it 90% is that I either like your art style and you just don't have any pieces that I'm currently interested in, and so I want to check your stuff later, or I'm literally bookmarking you so that I can add you to my when I am allowed to spend money freely again, I will buy something from you. And I don't feel like doing that with what I'm seeing at these craft fairs and the like. You know what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Someone's gonna get really mad about this video. I feel it in my bones.